my, oops, my coffee mug. Okay. And wait a bit for Philippe and Youngjo to remove theirs, so we can continue. Until then, I will remove the annotation. Okay. So, oh, let's wait a bit for Philippe to get back so he can remove his coffee mug. Okay, thank you, Philippe. So now we are going to discuss a bit about some helper utilities, helper programs that come shipped with Bacula, with Director when you install it, and with Storage Daemon in some extent. Okay, and those binaries can be used to get you out of a really sticky situations. All that is common for these binaries, apart from B-tape, for example, because it also needs to be used in pre-production, are that they are not to be used daily as a daily vessel. They are to be used when you need to recover yourself from some sort of a disaster. They come with Bacula. They are documented. I will show you. So this is the documentation. And then there is management, tape volume management, for example. And here you have documented majority of those binaries. But the fastest way how you can know about them is just to type their name. Here, for example, B-tape. And click on the link using B-tape to verify test drive, okay? Or click on the other link about the B-tape command, okay? That's the fastest way that you can get to them, although they are all listed here under tape/volume management. Those binaries are extremely important for you if you find yourself in sticky situations. Once more, if you find yourself using these binaries daily, you're doing something wrong. Those are not for daily use, okay? They have a specific use, each one of them, and it should be used only to get yourself out of a problem. Let's start with BLS. BLS, or B listing, is a binary that allows you to list the content of a Bacula volume. I've told you that Bacula volumes have actually a pretty specific format that mixes data with the metadata. In general, you cannot read Bacula volumes directly. It needs to be done using the storage daemon through regular Bacula operation. But if something daemon and you would like to see what is written on a certain Bacula volume, for example, you stumble upon an old tape that was backed up with Bacula and you want to see the content, you can do so by using the BLS command. Okay, this is an example of listing the directory, the file using the BLS command. The first part, called immortal, is actually the label. Everything else are the files and their attributes. Okay, if while using the BLS command you see a file that is crossed over, that means that that file should be deleted. So accurate tracking was enabled. You can use BLS to see what has been written, what files have been written on which volume. If you see multiple files, single file written multiple times, that means that you have multiple versions of the same file created by multiple backup runs, okay? Once you understand what has been written on the volume, then you can utilize other binary called bextract to restore it directly from the volume without Bacula. bextract gets the file from the volume, okay? Can be used to restore a single file, or it can be used to restore a group of files. You need to pass the list of files to be restored as an argument. Write it in a specific document, a specific file, and then pass that file as an argument to bextract. And it is really useful when you need to restore on an empty system that does not run Bacula. So BLS together with bextract can get you really far out of sticky situations. If you have a disaster and your complete bacula infrastructure is down, you can utilize BLS to double check on which volume has, for example, catalog backup, and then use bextract to extract it. With both BLS and bextract, you can also utilize bootstrap files as an argument. If you pass bootstrap file to bextract, then bextract will proceed in an optimal manner to read volume or volumes as a plural and extract only the files belonging to that job which has been documented using the bootstrap. And that is the fastest and most optimal way that you can use to extract something directly from bacula volume, having bextract and bootstrap file. Okay? And this is exactly what we will ask of you to do in your next exercise. Let me just jump to the exercise. Exercise number 10. We have a question from Young Joe. Yes, a single file can be distributed over multiple volumes. There is no restriction about that. This is why it is important when you perform a disaster recovery restore that you list the volumes in exactly the same order as they were written to. And the easiest way for this is to have a bootstrap file. Okay? So if you have a huge file and small volumes, that file will span multiple volumes. Here is the exercise number 10. More or less, you're going to perform similar routine as the exercise number 9, disaster recovery of a bacula.sql file, but this time you're not going to be using that unorthodox approach to the restore command by running it as a run command, okay? But what you're going to be using is BLS to list the content of a volume that holds bacula catalog backup, and then use the bextract together with the bootstrap file to extract only a single backup of a catalog, okay? And take a screenshot of the output. Nothing spectacular, but pretty important for you to understand that even if primary bacula infrastructure is down, okay, you can restore things directly from volumes and then use those things to make your bacula infrastructure run again. There was a question again from Young Joe. Yes, if single file spans multiple volumes, you will need to have both of the volumes available to restore that file. Simply as that. And there is a way that you can list multiple volumes as an argument to BLS or bextract command, or again, much easier way is to have a bootstrap file. Then the bootstrap file, you know that bootstrap file has a list of all the volumes and all the volume coordinates. If you just use the bootstrap file, you don't need to think about which volume are being used. You just direct the command with the bootstrap file to the specific directory, and then the command will grab the volumes as it needs them, okay? So this is exercise number 10. Again, pretty important exercise to try. Please give it a go, and please share the results with us. And we will, we will direct you if you have done something in a manner that we do not expect, okay? Questions? If no, I will continue just to remove this workbook, okay? I told you some time ago that you should run your catalog backups frequently, okay? And if something happens to a catalog, you can restore the backup using now, BLS, bextract to restore it, and then just push it back in. But what happens if you have run certain amount of jobs, then a catalog backup, and then run some new jobs, okay? Once you restore the latest backup, not all of the jobs will be recorded. In that case, you can do one of two things. One is to rerun those jobs and thus uh, to have again fresh copies made or fresh backups made, but this at that time you're wasting a certain storage amount. I told you before also that bacula volume is pretty special. Bacula volume format notes or stores data together with the metadata. Majority of metadata records that are written in the catalog are also stored in the volume. And we have a command that can scan that volume, get that metadata, and if everything looks okay, you can even direct that command to run a synchronization with a catalog database. This command is called bscan. So what you can do if you're missing certain backups, either you have restored the catalog, but there were additional backups done afterwards, or you have simply removed the backup, the records using the pruning or purging algorithm. Purging does removal without any without making any note of the retention times. So it just removes the records. So if the records are lost, but the backup still exists in a volume, you can run a bscan, so the entries will be read from the volume metadata entries, and it will be printed to you on the output. If you run a bscan with specific arguments, -n and -s, but it's all listed in the documentation, then those entries will be actually uploaded to the catalog. And please do not be worried. Bscan is intelligent. So if the catalog entries already exist, they will not be overwritten. But if they are different or they do not exist, they will be overwritten or insert a new. Okay, so bscan is intelligent up to a point. Also, with bscan, as with BLS and bextract, it is a good thing to have a bootstrap file, because then you will be making sure that you're reading through volumes in an optimal manner, in exactly the same manner as the backup was made. So you will be more or less replaying the backup, getting the metadata. So what bscan can do, it can list the metadata written on the bacula catalog, and it can upload it and synchronize it. Written in the bacula volume, and it can upload it and synchronize it in the bacula catalog. Okay. What you should be aware of is that it's strongly recommended to backup your database before running bscan. Okay. In the case that something goes wrong. Okay. And you need to be very careful. For you also to understand, using bscan together with BLS and bextract, so using those tools are not daily tools to be used, and it takes much more time than to perform regular backups and restores. Okay? So you use those tools only if catalog is compromised or some other problem happened to bacula. If you have bacula functional, please utilize bacula, as a system to store backups, to restore things. Okay, only use bscan, bextract, and BLS if something is missing. You should not be using them as your regular day-to-day means of regular day-to-day operations. What we've seen is people, for example, because they were not willing to invest in the director host and have a have a relatively big catalog. What they did, they were aggressively removing entries from the catalog, making aggressive purges. After a week or so, everything was purged from the files. Files are the records that take the most space, because it takes around 200 bytes for a file for a file record, and you can have millions of them. So they were running those and removing files, and then when they wanted to perform a single item restore, what they did bscan. And that, if you're using it as a part of your daily operation, can lead to have a really non-consistent database. So bscans are not rules. Bscans are exceptions. You use them only in specific occasion, and mostly people do not start using them on their own. We advise them to use them. Okay? So be aware that you can do a lot with BLS, B-scan, and B-extract to help you get out of problematic situations. But you should not plan B-extract, B-scan, and BLS to be used as a mean of a daily operation. That's something for which these utilities are not meant to be used. Okay? And now, one utility that we always advise you use, and that in pre-production, that is called B-tape. B-tape is actually a Swiss Army knife for tapes because it can do a lot of things with tapes, okay? It is a simple, relatively simple tool, but it has an interactive mode. You start it by saying B-tape and the name of the drive as defined in the device, in the device resource of the configuration file for storage daemon. B-tape will jump into the configuration file, list the resource, and then use the parameters from the resource to connect to that device. Okay, and then you can do one of many actions. For example, what you can do, you can read bacula labels from the tape. You can write new labels onto a tape, relabel tapes. You can perform different tests with the tape. You can run a test that will fill a tape to the brim, but you've discussed that with Arno and with me in the past. Before you put tape into production, the first two things you need to do is, one, try to fill a tape to see whether or not bacula detects the end of tape, and two, run a test command that will show you the performance of a tape, okay? Sorry, run the speed command that will show you the performance of a tape with current settings. Current settings are gotten from the bacula SD-comp file, okay? And what you do is you run one attempt and then change the bacula SD-comp file in one or the other direction to see whether or not it improves, okay? And once you are using B-tape, please use only blank tapes or tapes that you don't plan to use, okay? Because B-tape will write things to a tape and make it unusable. These are the options. One of the most prominent, you can also use a bootstrap file with B-tape to perform certain tests. And you can, with B-tape, with -C, define an alternative configuration file path. So what people tend to do is they run B-tape on a copy of a storage daemon configuration file and modify that copy until they find proper parameters. So, most important two commands with B-tape are test and fill, okay? What you do is you literally load a blank tape, mount a blank tape in a drive, and then test will perform basic tests, and fill will fill the tape until the end and make sure you have the before you put file into production. There is an additional command that is pretty useful. It is called a speed. Okay, what this command does, it sends it sends test data sets to the tape. Okay, you can say speed and then a file size. This is a logical file size, you know, one of the parameters from the device directive, and number of files. If you say speed with some file size and 3 files, it will send three times null data, 3 times row backup data, or 3 times row random data. So null data are all nulls or zeros. Row backup, row bacula blocks is the blocks that resemble to blocks that bacula will use, and random data is just something randomly generated, and it will print out the throughput of each of those tests, and it will repeat those tests this number of repetition. And afterwards, you can run the same command with a different file size, a bit bigger, for example, and see whether or not these numbers are increasing. If they're increasing, then you should go with bigger file sizes. If they start to drop, you found your, your sweet spot. So this is what you should do before. This is what you should do before putting bacula into production. Test different file sizes. with the speed command. Once you find the proper file size, then you try to modify maximum block size in the bacula/sdcom file, and then run the same speed with the same file size again. And if the numbers improve, then you go and make block size bigger and bigger. If the numbers decrease, then you go a step back and you have found your magical combination of block size and file size for which the tapes have the biggest throughput. This is something we advise you always do, to perform tape test tuning with the speed command each time before you put tape into production. Once you have set these parameters, you write them someplace and you use them for as long as you use that tape library with Bacula. If you change the tape library, or if you buy new drives, for example, whatever you do, if you change the technology, then you need to run those tests again before you commit using it with Bacula. So this is something that we advise. Oh, block sizes are placed in multiples of 512. Once you get started with this, there is also instruction on how to do that on our on our documentation. Here it is, inside of BTape. So you can testing the tape drive, and you can take a look here. Okay, but if you're still unsure, please reach out to support and we will guide you. Share with us at least the generation of your tape device. We have some values that you can try to use as a starter value, and then just try move them up and down, so you don't lose too much time in testing different values that do not apply to your tape library. Apart from those, there are a lot of other BTape commands. I will just show some of those. Most useful, apart from speed, test, and fill, are a command to read the labels, so you can verify whether or not this tape was actually labeled by Bacula. Then you can use BTape to list the capabilities of a device. It will literally use the underlying mechanism to get the capabilities of a drive. And you can use even BTape to test auto changers, so to see whether or not tapes can be loaded and unloaded properly. Apart from those, a lot of other things you can do. You can clear tape errors. You can go to the end of data, go to the physical end of medium, and a lot of other things. Load, unload, label the tape. As relabel, you can label the tape. You can rewind, etc., etc. So a lot of things that you can do literally with a tape drive using the mfig command can be also used through BTape from an interactive mode. Okay. In any case, BTape are, as I told you, is a Swiss Army knife with tapes and Bacula. You need to use it in pre-production, and sometimes we advise you use BTape to fix certain problems. For example, what you can use BTape for is to manually clear Bacula, manually recycle Bacula tape by literally rewinding the tape and writing the end of file at the beginning of a tape. That will effectively recycle the tape, and then you can then label it properly. Okay. Apart from those, there are other helper commands, but not so interesting as those four. One of those utilities is BSMTP, and we have discussed it with messages resources. So this is a rudimentary, very simple mail client, mail program that can be used with Bacula to send out email messages. Of course, it needs to be tested, and you can test it manually. Here are the options. You can read more about them in the documentation. Okay? And some that we have discussed before. One of those is bregx. This is a utility that you can use to test regular expressions. Pretty simple to use. You say bregx and then the regular expression, and then a lesser than sign and the name of the file where a test listing of directory has been created. So it will use this expression against the test listing, and it will print out the results. Bwild works exactly the same, apart from testing wildcard expressions. And there is a binary which is not used anymore. I dare say it's called bcopy. It was used in the past to create copies of one bacula volumes to another volume, exactly one-to-one copies. That command was used in the past, okay, to create multiple copies of the same backup. Nowadays, we have copy and migration jobs, special type of jobs that are used for this purpose. They are not part of this course, but you can read about them in the documentation. So copy and migration jobs nowadays are used instead of bcopy, but we still keep it here for historical purposes, and there are people that like to use this command. Okay? And this wraps up a really important section about different utilities that can help you a lot if you find yourself in problems. Okay? Please do not forget about them. Okay? Most probably you will put them at the back of your mind after a certain period of time, but please remain aware that they exist. If something bad happens, they are always here to help you. And please make some time to run the BLS/BExtract exercise, so you at least once try to perform a restore outside of bacula. Okay? Questions? Okay, you can always paste some in the chat, but if no, I will continue with the next section. And next section is on how to get help, mostly in the community world, because in the enterprise world, all you need to do to get help is to raise a ticket using your customer portal, and how to debug bacula behavior. Again, more for the community world. In the enterprise world, we use the same approach, so I will discuss it here, but we will remind you when you raise a ticket. Debugging is something that, in general, you should not initiate on your own. We will ask you exactly what to do and how to debug, but let us discuss here what we can do also, and what are the possibilities. So, if you find yourself in problems with bacula and you cannot understand how to solve them, in the enterprise world, it's pretty easy. You just reach out to us, raise a ticket, reach out to bacula support, raise a ticket, okay, and then we will guide you. In the community world, it's a bit more complex because you need first to be aware, or first to verify whether or not that bug already exists. So you can jump to bugsbacula.org for information needed. Try to search through this. This is a Mantis system for bug reporting. Try to search through it and see whether or not someone already reported something like this. And also you need to be aware that feature requests, so asking for an additional functionality is not a bug. And if you have verified that something does not exist, it's not reported already, then you should report it using this system. What you should document. We will guide you what you should document in the enterprise world, and mostly we have a script called business report generator that will document majority of those things. But in the community world, it would be nice for you to initially document the operating system you use, version of bacula, description of a problem, screenshots, reports, job logs, okay? For tape-related problem, we also would like to know the vendor model of a tape and whether or not you run B-tape tests and what were the results. And if you have built the binaries on your own, then we will most surely, not we, but the community support will ask, and it's a good thing for you to include an output from a configure command. Once you run a configure script, when building the binaries, it creates an output file. Keep it, because you will possibly be asked for that if you have some bugs pending. Nowadays, majority of people, even in the community world, does not build their binaries, but downloads them either from our website, bacula.org, which is a good choice, or from the vendor side, which is not such of a good choice, from the operating system vendor side. So this one cannot be gotten. And you should document other configuration files. Also, apart from our bug tracking system, there is a lot of resources on bacula.org, mainly the documentation. I can share bacula.org with you so you can see In the bacula.org, there is a documentation section, and there are manuals here, so you can take a look here, either in the HTML version of the manuals or PDF for the newest version and for a bit older. And there is a support button where you have bug reporting. If you open this one, you will be opening the information how you can connect to our bugs.baculasystem.org tool, but also there are email lists, and one that is really, really useful is Bacula users. Okay, so you can join that list, support list, Bacula users, and in that list, a lot of my colleagues is active, are included, and can help you a lot. Of course, people on that list are doing this, are helping people at their own time, as their own choice. Okay, so the SLA does not exist, and you will be getting some replies and directions, but yes, that's how the bugsbacula.org looks like. Okay, but in your case, Philippe and Inocencio, we advise that you reach out to support, to community portal. Okay, we do use Mantis tool for bacula community bugs, but majority of things that can go wrong with bacula are immediately known and known faster by the enterprise. Okay. In any case, in the community world, there are bacula.users, community list, and also there are some companies that provide support for community. Okay. We provide support for enterprise, but there are some companies that can help you out there. Okay. And if you have a serious problem, okay, and the most serious of those are when bacula goes kaboom without any apparent reason, so they're called a crash. There is also something that can help you. With every bacula daemon nowadays, okay, we have shipped out a small tool. It is called btraceback script. That tool is installed when you install the daemon together. It's a script that will literally be the last thing that is executed if the daemon crashes. And that script will generate something called a trace file, backtrace file to be more precise. What is a backtrace file? A backtrace file is actually an output from a debugger program. For this script to be functional fully, apart from having bacula daemon installed on your host, you need to have a debugger installed, either GDB, in most cases GNU debugger, or DBX on some systems. So what does this script do is, once bacula daemon fails, crashes, script is nudged, the script will get two things. One, figure out which debugger is installed on the system, and two, process ID of the process that crashed. And then it will initiate debugger and get the output from all the internal registries needed in order for our developers to understand why crash might have happened. Okay? It is essential that you have GDB installed, so if something happens and btraceback file is kicked off, and GDB is not installed, one of the first lines in the backtrace file will be there is no GDB debugger. So when you have bacula crashing and you reach out for support and we ask you for a backtrace file by default is saved inside of the working directory. Okay, but possibly it can be placed someplace else. Our business report generator script will search through all of those most likely places and list all the backtrace files you have. Okay, but if the GDB is not installed, once you send us the file, we'll see it's not installed. So what we do, we ask you to install it and run again the daemon and wait for it to crash again. If it happens again, we'll have more information. Those information are quite enough for our developers to figure out what happened. Okay? Some backtrace scripts are also configured to send the backtrace files automatically onto an external email address. You can also configure it like so on your own, okay? And you can even try to see how this can happen. What you need to do is you need to run a bacula daemon and then send that daemon one of the signals that will make it crash. Most significantly, it can be a segmentation violation signal, okay? It is called segv, and you just send it and the daemon will crash and the daemon should create a backtrace file, okay? As a part of our one of the optional exercises, we are going to be running the backtrace generation, so I'm not going to take a lot of your time discussing this here, okay? We'll discuss it during the exercise, but also for you to know, the system might not crash, okay, sorry, the bacula daemon might not crash, but it might function poorly. For something like this, you cannot use backtrace file to understand because it didn't crash. The backtrace file was not generated, but still you want to watch the exact things that the process is executing. For something like this, you can enable debugging while the daemon runs. All you need to do is either to start a program, so bacula -dir, bacula-sd, or bacula-fd program. You start it with -d and then XX, which is a number that means a debug level option, and it will immediately start recording those messages. Or what we advise more that you do nowadays is, because we have compiled all of our programs with an internal debugger, you can use bconsole set debug command and set certain level of debugging and possibility to write a trace file. So debugging information should be written to a file, not a bconsole, okay, for a certain daemon. Independence on how much information you want to track, you need to create, to set a bigger level, okay? 0, when you set debug with level 0, it actually means debugging should be turned off, okay? Everything above 0 is a level for debugger. Some initial information can be gotten with level 50. Much detailed information can be gotten with level 100, and a lot of details with level 150. The higher the number goes, the more detail you will get. If you sometime in the future would experience problems in bacula functionality of a daemon, but it does not crash, we will most probably, and it's an enterprise and you reach out to us, we will most probably advise you how to enable debugging of a certain daemon and which level to use. Depending on a thing that we want to see, we advise you of a certain level. Okay, we are not omniscient. We don't know all the levels by heart, but what we do is when we need to help you with a specific complex issue, what we do is reach out to our R&D and then ask them about the proper debugging settings. Okay, and they will let us know and we will let you know. Levels above 400 are really a bit overwhelming, and they will, and also you need to be aware, once you enable debugging on a certain bacula daemon, you can enable debugging on all daemons or just certain one. You can say set debug level 100 director, set debug level 100 storage equals, and then the name of the storage daemon, client equals the name of the client, or you can debug it everywhere. If you enable debugging on certain daemon, that daemon will slow down because debugging takes processing power. Okay, but in order for you to test this, we have an exercise for you, and this is exercise number 10. Exercise number 11, tracing bacula daemon operation, in which we will direct you to enable debugging, lifetime debugging, on a certain storage daemon or on a certain file daemon, and then take a screenshot and send us a description of what you see. At the end, so you enable the debugging, you for sure place this trace equals 1 in the command line, so you also generate debugging information inside of a file, not console. And you should disable debugging at the end with level 0 trace 0, okay? And it will produce a file for you in the working directory. The file will be named exactly as the storage daemon is named, with .trace, and you need to send us a screenshot of that file and briefly describe what you see. And do the same thing for the client. Okay, please, please just briefly describe what you see. You don't need to describe every line. You will see a lot of lines. You just tell us what you see in these lines, and that's it. 1, 2, 3 sentences, that's max. Okay? And that is the last mandatory exercise we have for you. Okay? There are going to be some more exercises, but none of those is mandatory. Of course, if you are too keen to try not live debugging, but backtrace file generation on your own, you can do that, okay? By initiating a new debugger and then starting bacula director underneath it. How to do this is stop all bacula daemons, okay? Then go into the bacula directory that holds bacula dir binary, and then say gdb and the path to the binary of bacula dir. It will initiate gdb and it will position itself in that directory, and then you execute this binary with an option -f, -f, -c, that means configuration file. And director should start working. At the same time, in another window, okay, connect to the same console and say kill -s and the process ID, -s segv, that means segmentation violation, and the process ID, and it will kill this process. And once it kills this process, backtrace files should be generated. But in order for you to see how they look like, you will see here a message that the process stopped, and then you should enter these commands. And these commands will generate a backtrace file for you, and you can take a look. And this is something that we would like you to try, but as an option, if you have the time, because it's not, tremendously important, but it can be interesting as an optional exercise. Okay, so stop bacula director, switch into its directory, run it under run the bacula dir binary under gdb. Okay, execute it and then kill it, and then enter this command. Okay, and see what will be printed out. Okay. You can also take a look at this exercise and you can send them the results. That would be fantastic, but it's not mandatory. And we have for you, for the end, okay, another interesting exercise, again, not mandatory, and that exercise is called the shortest possible director configuration, okay? There are some rules, okay? So, what we will be asking you to do, if you can spare the time, is to create director configuration that can run, okay? So, that configuration needs to be the shortest possible, okay? But the @ character is forbidden. So you cannot create only one line and set @ and include the other file. No. You need to create all the mandatory resources with all the mandatory directives of those resources. And only one directive per line can be used, no semicolons. A resource name that can be created only with opening brace and closing brace go on their own lines, okay? Resources that need to be named with opening and closing braces also can be left in only one line. So braces should go on their own lines. Resources that only have a name can be one line. All comments are ignored and black or empty lines are ignored. And what is the number of lines needed? We managed to create something like this and end up with 43 lines as a bare minimum. Possibly some of you will manage to get something less than 43. In any case, if you have the time and the inclination to work on this exercise, please try and send us the results. We will definitely review them and let you know whether or not this is adequate for the task. We have came up with this task as one of our company meetings as an eternal, I would say, competition. And our colleague Bill was the first who created a 43-liner. Okay? And that was the bare minimum at the time. Please give it a go, and we are interested to see whether or not you will manage to perform to create something with less lines. And with this, I will officially finish with the lectures. So now I will open up the floor for questions, and also for you to know we have one more thing to discuss, and this is the final exam task. Okay? We can do this after the break because now we are due for a break. Okay? But the break is a 3-hour break. Or we can discuss the final exam task even now. I don't know whether or not Arno prepared it, the file, but he can do that pretty quickly. I know. We can discuss it even now, and then we will close the course to fully, so you will not be obliged to connect at the afternoon. Okay? So what is more convenient for you? All the ones in favor for us to create now, to discuss the final exam task now, and then to close the complete course, could you please raise your hand? Okay, no one is raising their, Young Joe is for us to discuss the final exam now and then close the course. Philippe Inocencio, would you prefer a break before we discuss the final exam? Yes, no? Philippe Inocencio, are you with us? Hello? Hello, Philippe. Hello, Inocencio. Are you with us currently? This is mighty strange, I must confess. Hello, Inocencio. Is Philippe also? Okay, Philippe is connected. So I will reply, I will repeat what I've proposed, but I will wait until Philippe joins. Okay? So we'll wait for Philippe. So the proposition is for us to discuss the final exam now, so you have all the information needed, and then we call for a break. During this break, we will have still an hour for your questions, but we will not need to connect at the afternoon at 2 p.m. This is mainly because Young Joe is from Korea, and 2 p.m. our time is 10 p.m. his time. So, you know, we can, so this guy can have at least one decent evening during this week. So is it okay from your side, Innocencio, and from Felipe's side, who still did not manage to join? So I will need to wait, I guess. But okay, it's okay for you. I will just need to double check. So with Arno. So Arno will need to prepare the final exam document for you, okay? But we still don't have Philippe joining, so can you please, Innocencio, nudge Philippe and see whether or not he will manage to join. So the idea is this, because we have finished with everything about with your final task. So I give you all the exercises. Arno will prepare a final exam task for you, and we will discuss with you a bit around that task. I will leave Arno to it, okay? And afterwards, we will still be available for the next hour, Arno and myself, for any additional questions you have. But the course will be finished, and you don't need to connect at the afternoon. So after we disconnect today, after this hour of consultation, you are free, the course is finished, and we will remain in communication over email for you to send us all the missing exercises and the final exam. But for this, you will have an additional week, okay? But let us wait a bit more for Philippe. Innocencio, would it be possible for you to double check with Philippe whether or not he can join so we can discuss this? Okay. Okay, Philippe agrees. Okay, then I expect that Philippe can track this conversation from the other connection. So then I propose for us to, for Muse, sorry, to leave the screen sharing, give it to Arno, okay? So Arno discusses the final exam with you, okay?